Welcome back. Day 25 then of Hammerween, and we're talking about 1966's Plague of the Zombies. Could have been The Reptile because it was a shot back-to-back affair, but I chose this one for the specific reason that Andrea Morell gets a rare lead in a Hammer film. So, the plot and then the review, as always. I will fill out the plot quite a bit and I will skip a little bit at the end because of spoilers, again, for a lesser seen film. Sir James Forbes, who's played by Andrew Morell, is sent a letter by his old protege at medical school, Dr. Peter Thompson, who says, "Hello there, I'm in Cornwall practicing medicine now. Everybody's dying, there's a plague in the village, don't know how to fix it. Please help. Hope everything's okay at your end. Love, Peter." Basically. Sir James, he's not too fussed, but he's persuaded by his daughter Sylvia, played by Dan Clare, because she wants to go down and visit Peter, Dr. Peter Thompson, because she's friends with Alice, who's Peter's wife. So we'll go down and, even if there's not something going on, at least we'll have a holiday and catch up with an old friend or two. So fair enough. When they go down, they are instantly set upon by upper class twits. They're fox hunting, so that's shorthand for being an upper class twit, isn't it? The upper class twits also knock down a coffin procession that's happening, a funeral procession, I should say, and the coffin goes flying, and we see the rather uncanny corpse inside, which is a sight to behold. So everybody kind of settles down, moves about their affairs. Everybody catches up. We have a couple of scenes of just meandering where people are just assessing the situation and you won't believe what's going on in this village and well there must be a rational explanation. Again, very Sherlock Holmes. The quiet, the calm before the storm. Um, Sir James and Dr. Peter Thompson decide that the only way to get some kind of answer is to do an autopsy because every single death, over a dozen of them, have not had any kind of autopsy. He's not been allowed as the town doctor to do any. So he has no way of saying what the cause of death is, which has made him something of a pariah in the community who think that he's a negligent doctor. He just won't certify anything that he can't prove. So, he's standing by his morals. Meanwhile, Sylvia goes out just for a walk in the woods and is attacked and nearly raped by those fox hunters from earlier on. They take her back to posh house. We find out that's owned by Squire Clive Hamilton, played by John Carson. He beats one of his servants up. They call him Master when everybody leaves. Where the good guys leave. So we know he's in charge of things. He's the squire. He's the burgermeister, isn't he? The mayor. Essentially, he's in charge of affairs in town, and he's the one who's put the kibosh on any kind of autopsies, post-mortems being done. So Andrew Morell and Brooke Williams, Peter Thompson, dig up a grave. They're assisted by Michael Ripper as a jolly copper on parade. They dig up a grave to try and do an autopsy in an unhanded Burke and Hare kind of way because they haven't got permission to do so. But the body is not there. Meanwhile, Sylvia, having one of those nights after being nearly raped, on her way home, she sees her good friend Alice, so Peter's wife, Jacqueline Pierce. He sees Alice being tossed by a zombie. A very distinct looking zombie, as we'd come to know them. Very, very distinct looking. She goes back to report this. She's hurt, but she's not seriously wounded or anything. She goes back to her father and says, "What's happened? Clearly, this needs further investigation because now there's some kind of zombie involvement." She isn't believed because the police have already accused Tom, who's the brother of the corpse that we met, as he was found in a drunken stupor. He denies it and says that he's also seen his deceased brother walking around. When they do an autopsy on Jacqueline Pierce's character, Alice, it's discovered that her blood is now animal. It's not human whatsoever. So, although Dr. Peter has lost his wife and Sylvia has lost her best friend, it kind of helps them out because at least they can do an autopsy on someone finally. So we kind of put aside the zombie part just to do the blood analysis, which takes a good few minutes, and again is done in a very Sherlock Holmes fashion. Meanwhile, the Squire comes back into it. We find that Jekyll and Pierce is dead now. Alice had a mark on her from a cut that she'd sustained before the film started. The Squire comes to the house and visits Sylvia and causes an accident with a wine glass and causes her to have almost exactly the same cut. And we see him taking a blood sample from her. Now, I wonder how much further I should go from there. I don't think I should go too much further at all, really. Suffice to say, they are now on the trail of the Squire. They are now convinced that there is something supernatural going on. And Andrea Morell as Sir James Forbes and Brooke Williams as Peter Thompson effectively become Holmes and Watson, trying to find the ultimate truth of what's happening in this strange village, with Sylvia along the way being more of a kind of MacGuffin. She's the one that is used for things to happen to, so that they can advance the plot. So yeah, I think I'll leave the review part, sorry, the synopsis part there. So they're on to the Squire, and there's a really action-packed finale. But I won't spoil it because again, like I keep saying, it's not for me because a lot of people are watching this who haven't seen the films. Review time. Fantastic. Andrew Morell is relishing the chance to play Sherlock Holmes in all but name. He's playing it exactly as if he was Sherlock Holmes. The film is written by Peter Bryan, who wrote Hound of the Baskervilles, in which Andrew Morell was Watson. So he's clearly enjoying the chance to effectively be Sherlock Holmes. Sylvia, his daughter, the one that's nearly raped and the one that sees the first zombie in the film, she's well played by Diane Clare. She's well played, but as a character, she's undercooked because she's only really in the plot to advance things. She's nearly raped to advance things. She sees the zombie attack to advance things. She's um, cut by the Squire to advance things. So she doesn't have much agency of her own. She's there for things to happen to. Dr. Peter Thompson, Brooke Williams' character, dull as dishwater. He completely doesn't sell that his wife has just died. There's very little going on behind his performance at all. I think it's one of the weakest that we've seen in a Hammer film, actually. Made up for by John Carson, who's clearly having the time of his life playing the villain here, playing the Squire. He's playing it in a decidedly upper class voice, a terribly BBC 1950s voice. London calling all the ships at sea, one of those kind of affairs. Michael Ripper, again, gets a slightly larger part than usual, just like Devil Ship, Pirates of Blood River the other day. Slightly bigger part than usual, as the copper who's going to help out a little bit in this investigation. He would also have a slightly bigger part in The Reptile. It's a good reason to watch this as a twofer. One unfortunate bit of casting is Lewis Mahoney, one of the few black actors working in the UK at the time, who was consistently cast along with Rudolph Walker and Earl Cameron. He's credited just as coloured servant, which, okay, it's 1966. I'll give you a slight pass on that. In terms of the look of the film, it's stunning. The sets are remarkable. Clearly, they put some money into this, knowing that they could get two films out of it. It looks great. It doesn't feel like most Hammer films where you see the same old sets and the same old locations, the same old bits of woodland, the same old parts of Bray Studio, the same old staircases. It's all new. It's kind of fun to watch this as a twofer with the Reptile and see how they use them in different ways across two films. But it looks stunning, this film. Again, shot by Arthur Grant, who seems to be the cinematographer on everything we talk about this week. James Bernard, Hammer's greatest composer, does the score for this, and it's wonderful. It incorporates African rhythm, because we're dealing with the supernatural and the voodoo. These very much are the voodoo zombies of Haiti. And the film calls that out. It mentions that voodoo is a Haitian ritual that's been transposed to other places. So it can't even be accused of cultural appropriation because the film acknowledges that, which for 1966 is quite something. Um, the general tone of the film is fantastic. There's a great shape to it. There's a great form with the building tension. Again, with a very Sherlock Holmes style to it, where the investigation is set up when we're still in London. The investigation is accepted, and then things start to happen along the way for effectively Sherlock Holmes, Sir James, to start investigating, including some red herrings, a man who's framed for the crime and didn't do it, and only Sherlock Holmes, Sir James, can prove it. So it's got a structure that is very Sherlock Holmes. You could almost change the names and just make this a Sherlock Holmes adventure. But that doesn't detract from it at all because I love Sherlock Holmes and it's great to have that kind of sleuth structure on top of a horror film because it does follow through with the supernatural elements as well. And it's got some great social commentary when we find out the ultimate aims of the Squire towards the end of the film, which, again, very progressive for 1966, what he's trying to do with the zombies, which you kind of won't spoil just now. The film is well worth anybody's time. I think this is a real banger from Hammer. The only downsides of it are the occasional performance, as mentioned. Dr. Thompson, Brooke Williams, he's fill his dishwater, and again, his wife dies, and a scene later, he's completely normal. Not great, not great. He lets it down. I don't know if you need Sylvia to suffer so much in terms of, nearly being raped and then being attacked by a zombie. She's the one that suffers for the plot to move forward, as I mentioned. That's a bit old-fashioned. She's very much the damsel in distress. But Diane Clare, to her credit, always has a feistiness which belies the script. She always has a comeback. She's always fighting her way out. She doesn't wait for someone to rescue her. So although she effectively is a damsel in distress, she's not waiting for a hero. She's just going to solve it herself. Um, some wonderful performances make it just an absolutely fantastic Hammer film. The sets, the score, the look, the tone, the script. John Gelling's direction, he can be hit and miss, nails it here. Nails the jumps from investigation to supernatural uncanny wonderfully. So, yeah, I think this is a really highly recommended Hammer film. Should you have not seen it, but if you have done, let me know your thoughts below. And hey, maybe one day we'll talk about the reptile and see the flip side of the coin, eh? Who knows, my dears? Who knows? Well, that'll do us for today. Join me tomorrow, won't you? As we're continuing Vampire Weekends, our final Vampire Weekend of the month, which will feature tomorrow Twins of Evil, the final Karnstein trilogy entry. So join me for that, won't you? And I shall see you then. Until then, my dears, don't have nightmares.